Stefan, pleasure to have you on and really excited to chat and connect.
Yeah, hey Philip, good to be with you. Looking forward to the discussion. Let's dive into it.
Absolutely. Sounds good. So first on the order of operations, really wanted to dive into talking a little bit about democratizing access to trading. And I
Good.
think really something that's top of mind to everybody is how can decentralized derivatives reshape access to financial trading tools for both the retail and the institutional investors? And kind of what role does Bitmex play in enhancing financial inclusion?
I think that there are two things I want at least to dissect here. Number one is democratizing in terms of access, so meaning providing equal access. And the second one is the broader question in the ideology of democratizing, right? Which then goes into DeFi. So as you know, Bitmex is not a DeFi platform, but we are a centralized exchange, but we consider ourselves being as close to a DeFi platform in terms of transparency, in terms of neutrality, in terms of being crypto and Bitcoin native as possible. Why do we say this? For example, I mean, Bitmex has quite a journey behind it, like 10 years of operations already, inventor of the perpetual swap, basically inventor of the first fully segregated exchange wallet that was out there. We still segregate all of the assets. We provide twice a week proof of reserves and proof of liabilities with a coverage of 90% plus of our assets. So it's really something there. What Bitmex actually did is exactly this, providing equal access. So if you are with Bitmex, we provide access for corporate and institutional players as well as for individuals, right? So some people call that retail. We rather call it individual traders. Because the Bitmex crowd is a little bit, I would say, more professionalized than an average retail customer. Because we just provide derivatives. We don't have a strong spot offering. There is no fiat on and off ramp, so it's really like for professional traders who trade, I would say, not every day, but very regularly. So not for my mom and dad, for example. So, and we provide equal access. What does it mean? It just doesn't mean that you can register with a platform and then that's it, that you can do with any platform, right? But we provide tools and access points alike for both. So if you're an individual and you want to have an API connection, which enables you to trade sub-millisecond latency, you can do so, right? So if you are a programmer, a coder yourself, you want to write your own bots, your algos, you know how to do it, that gives you already a little bit what the crowd is that we are dealing with, then you can do so. And we have no issue with that whatsoever. If you are an institutional and you want to do that, of course you can do it. But we provide as well a web front end that is seen by many, many, if you look at it first time, as being very complex. But actually it gives you all the tools you need to trade professionally. Analysis tools, chart trading, analysis about your margin position. It gives you like forward-looking statements, so about what happens with your position. You can choose between cross-margin or isolated margin. I don't want to go into details here, but basically it gives you the experience that you would have if you would sit on a trading desk of any professional trading company out there, be it TradFi or be it crypto. On top of it, we provide social aspects like, our famous troll box, which is more for fun, I would say. But for example, our guild system enables people to join forces. So if Stefan and I don't know, average Joe want to join forces, we can found a guild. That's a name out of gaming, but it basically means we are one team. We share the same P&L. We share our positions, so we can cover different sub strategies in a macro strategy. So if you go long short, for example, and you play the market there, one is looking at the shorts, one is looking at the longs. So, and you have an edge there. And this is what we feel for ourselves. This is what we want to do and where we want to be. So equal access means we provide not just the access and you can use our service, but we want to be professionals and individuals as much as possible eye to eye, right? It's not always possible because it's a technology game as well. We can't provide all the technology like for the front end. There you have trading terminals that we integrate, for example. So there is more to this, but this is how we see it, right? This is step number one. It's just giving a service and making sure you can access something that in the traditional markets you cannot, right? Try to trade on CME or even on ICE as an individual. You can't. You always need to use your broker, so you lose time. you will always be on the losing end. You have partly the possibility to really do stuff like funding trades because others will take away or arb you out of the market. All of that you can do with Bitmex, right? So this is number one. Number two, and then going more to the DeFi world, which is actually close to our heart. We think like DeFi is a big thing, and there will be DeFi and centralized exchanges. And we even believe that DeFi platforms at some point in time will have the majority of the overall volume of the market. But that doesn't mean that centralized exchanges go away. But let's just briefly dive into DeFi, right? DeFi trading platforms for perpetual swaps, for example, do one thing and they do it very well. What you do, and I'm a European, an ethnical Western European. What they are, it is actually a cooperative that enables you to trade. So we are in a centralized exchange. We have owners, we have a management team. We provide centralized services. So there is someone you can sue, right? If things go wrong, you have a customer support. You have all of this. This is the benefit. The downside is if you really think you provide a lot of value to the centralized exchange, you probably feel like you don't get as much value out of it for whatever reason. We can debate that. Basically meaning there is a P&L, a corporate P&L, and this is distributed to management, the team, and the shareholders actually. For any centralized exchange, it's just like it's a company. Whereas a DeFi platform is rather something like a cooperative, where every user of it and every member is a co-owner of that. So you might redistribute all of those benefits. It can be in terms of token, it can be in terms of better pricing, it can be in terms of voting for what is being developed next, etc., etc. So you become part of your own cooperative, providing the service you use every day. So I believe that DeFi platforms are especially interesting for people who trade as with our platform every day, but potentially rather look for, hey, it's not trading for the sake of trading and making some money out of it by the price differential that you get or the strategies you apply, but you want to be more involved in this, right? So it's with any democratization, it's not just something you get. It's not a service you get. Actually, you get a service or you get a beneficial co-ownership of something it's not an expense, but at the contribution that you do something for that platform. So it's give and take. And I think this is what DeFi in the end, should actually achieve, right? So that you are part of that. You have even cooperative banks, especially in Western Europe, and they work very well. And DeFi platforms are the digital twins of that, and they're even technologically much more advanced. So it's really something I like. This is actually why I got into crypto first place, not so much to trade and to make some money there, but because I believe in that idea of, it was called once distributed autonomous organizations. Now it's DeFi platforms. It's all the same. It basically means let's say users or beneficiaries of the service are co-owners of the platform. That's basically it, right? So, and it's a very interesting concept, especially if you want this, you understand it. So this slogan, like the former slogan, "Be your own bank," I always have issues with that. Not issues, but I always like to discuss that because being your own bank means you need to know what you do. If you be your own bank and you don't know what you do, you will lose money. You will fail miserably. And this is not a warning. I want people to become their own bank. This is why I'm in this space. But it needs education too. So it's always like, this is what it is about for me. And this is why I believe there will be always like DeFi platforms and centralized crypto platforms as well, because it depends on what you want. If you want to speak to someone who is responsible, you end up probably with a centralized exchange. If you really want to take care of yourself or of that yourself, you end in a DeFi platform for sure.
Absolutely. And I think to your point, one of the very interesting concepts that we work with these days, working in the field of cryptocurrency, is financial sovereignty, right? It comes up over and over again. But I think to your point, financial sovereignty does come at the potential risk and the potential pitfall of, being responsible for your own money. And I think as individuals, especially those who have traditionally had access to the banking systems and have traditionally been, kind of trained to function in the financial world in a certain way, I think it's really scary for certain individuals to think that, there's nobody to call, there's nobody to sue, like you said, and so I think there's definitely a shift mindset of how you kind of interact with the world of finance when it comes to financial sovereignty versus potentially relying on, a centralized party to help manage and facilitate transactions and things like that. But I think to your point, we're starting to see a chasm between individuals that are kind of more comfortable leaning on themselves to manage their money and to be completely responsible for their funds versus those that kind of want to go the more centralized route and feel more comfortable. And then, of course, to your point, like with BitMEX, right? You guys are providing a relatively niche service to a specific subset of individuals so that it's not for my mom and dad, it's not for the people that I know that I see walking around in the street. It's for individuals that are looking for a very specific set of tools to accomplish their goals. And I think the beauty in the world of kind of decentralized finance as well as sort of alternative finance is that everybody has something to choose from. If you have
Yes.
a preference for pretty user interfaces and somebody to
Yeah.
potentially, take the, sort of assumed risk with you, then you have certain platforms versus if you want to go completely the DEX route and you don't care and you just would rather look at a terminal and everything is in code, you also have those options. And like you said, API access, things like that. I think it's really fascinating, and I especially appreciate the fact that these days we as consumers have a choice. And I think that
Mhm.
is extremely important. And I think is going to continue to be a theme in the world of finance. But kind of building off of your previous point and what we're talking about as far as risk goes, in the context of decentralized trading, how do you guys address risk at BitMEX and what mechanisms do you employ to protect users from the inherent risks of, trading derivatives?
Mhm. Here again, I would like to separate two issues, because they're always, I would say, commingled, for understandable reasons. So one is you trade derivatives and they give you a certain payout profile, very neutrally labeled. This is something that, well, it's a free market. If you are willing to choose this payout profile, it's your responsibility. And frankly, who are we to say no, you shouldn't do this? Right? So the choice about, for example, leverage, which isn't lending or borrowing, it's actually just a different payout profile, often misunderstood, especially by TradFi regulators. So this is up to you, right? And we believe it should be up to you, and you can choose. It's not like you go to the platform and you're set by default to 100 times leverage. Actually, you're set to by default 1 times leverage, and you need to choose to have more, right? So it's a conscious choice, and we want to provide this choice, and we think interfering with that is like, well, you can argue, I get the point of consumer protection, but we hint at that we are transparent about what it does, and we even give you the pre-liquidation price if you want to enter into position. So if you enter into position with Bitmex, having a certain, well, amount of collateral on the platform, it gives you what is the corresponding liquidation price. So you can set your stop limits to not be liquidated. You can't ignore this. I mean, if you ignore this in your order input, I mean, then you need to be blind. And sometimes even I don't get angry about it, but I'm like amazed that people still think this is something you enter into a trade and you don't know what it means. If you really do that, that was a conscious omission. We make sure that there is transparency. The moment you enter into position, you have position limits, and you have a full set of KPIs. They're basically saying, this is my position, this is the entry price, this is the mark price right now, this is the distance to liquidation, or the other way around, this is my realized and my unrealized P&L, this is the funding rate. So you see everything basically in, let's say, 2 seconds where you are. And then you can set your stop limits, you can do your own risk management. So this is one where I say it's not so much about protecting people from risks, it's more making them aware of what position they have and what does it mean if the market moves. And we are, I would say, like top of the list in terms of transparency. So this is it, number one. I mean, it comes again, and we had that, it's like two sides of the coin. It's not like totally easy user interface.
Sure.
I mean, it's not like just traffic light. It's a little bit more than this, but it's not overburdening. I mean, if you're semi versed in financial instruments, you get the point quite intuitively. So this is one where I say, hey, this is the free decision of our traders. Number two is the inherent risk of crypto trading, right? Which is, and this is comes back to where Bitmex comes from. At the time Bitmex was founded, the issue was, hey, if people trade with each other derivatives, not spot. Spot is delivery versus payment, not quite, but more so. With derivatives, it means there needs to be collateral so that your losses are covered for a certain period of time. And if you lose, the winning party of the trade, because it's a peer-to-peer trade, will get actually what they have won. So it's always a two-way street or two-sided coin. I mean, yes, of course, if I am, let's say I have a position, I have 100, whatever it is in collateral, and now I have a loss of 10. I think it's a loss, but it's a positive P&L for the other side of the trade. So someone else won 10, right? And the issue is, how secure is it that these funds are actually transferred to the other person's wallet? And the original thing in Bitmex was to manage that quite rules-based. Number one, having a clear segregation of funds. I mean, this engine at Bitmex works in a way that if all the funds and all the P&L doesn't add up and reconciles to the funds, so to the coins on the exchange, it stops. So not every incident you see is something that is really a technical issue. I mean, we hardly had that for now over 2 years or so. But basically, it might just be that there is a warning light and we stop trading actually because we want to make sure we are like 100% safe all the time there. Because our goal is whenever the exchange stops, we could basically liquidate all the positions and everyone would get her or his money. Right? This is because the founders had the experience with Mt. Gox where it wasn't like this. Or the discussion with FTX about non-liquidating accounts. I mean, non-liquidating account, if you say this at Bitmex, I mean, you're basically fired because it can't exist. Someone needs to pay for it. So who is it actually? And if it's not the company, then it's the users. So and this is what we don't want. So it's full segregation, number one. Number two, it's a settlement process where it's about how do we get the money over? And the original thing was like 10 years ago, every 8 hours. So we had a settlement mechanism every 8 hours. It was more an operational thing. These days, we do it every 10 minutes. So it's basically every block you have on Omni, we print new P&L and we get the P&L physically in the wallets over from one user to another. So it's immediately withdrawable. Right. So if you're in the green and you have equity, I mean, you can withdraw that money. I mean, like every 10 minutes. I mean, it can't be faster than this because that's just like the blocks. So next thing would be real time, which would be cool, but then it's not on chain. So this is the second one, right? So and those are true to us. And then the third one is hacking, right? So far, I mean, it's bad. We don't want to brag about it because it's a two-edged sword. But so far we never lost a coin and still counting. I mean, we are proud of that in one way, but we know that it comes at a great responsibility, right? So the thing is, it's easy to say that. It's much more difficult to actually keep that. And how do we do it? It's not that it's a given that no one will get at us. But the thing is, we keep like 95 to 97% of all of the funds on the platform in cold storage, and the process accessing that cold storage is quite difficult. It's like regionally distributed. It's distributed between persons. No person alone, not even two persons jointly can access this. So I mean, it's basically a headache operationally for us, but we think it's worth it. So, and then the last one, which is quite known, at least for the ones who are in crypto longer, is coming back to that P&L settlement process. So that sounds good as long as everything works out, right? But what might happen is that one person is going to be liquidated. I mean, sounds bad, but it's just necessary to protect the winner. But then that liquidation proceeds might not be sufficient to cover the positive P&L on the other side. And for this, there is the insurance fund, basically. So the insurance fund guarantees in strong market movements where you then have basically uncalculable, I mean, that sounds bad, but it just is a mathematical thing, uncalculable or uncertain liquidation proceeds. This thing kicks in to make sure that the winning party actually still get their P&L. And we have the biggest insurance fund in the industry. Our insurance fund is mainly Bitcoin. It's a little bit of ETH and a little bit of US dollar. And it is so it's mainly on chain, proof of reserves, proof of liabilities. And we have about 2.5 billion US dollar equivalent, which is much larger. I think it's more than twice the size of the next after us. And especially compared to open interest. So I think it's like 3.5 times open interest right now. And it just gives you some certainty that even if you have an open position, so if it's adding to open interest, even in a severe situation, like when you see large volatility, you can be sure that if you're on the winning side of the trade, you will get your money. And this is how we think about risk management. It's not so much about risk management because we are risk neutral. We don't trade against our customers. We don't, take positions ourselves on the market. But we want to make sure that the peer-to-peer function of the platform functions as long as possible, right? In a classical TradFi world, you have so-called lines of defense, but they go along with traders needing to contribute to so-called clearing funds that are actually their insurance funds. I mean, the clearing fund is the insurance fund. Yeah. So here it's built up out of the company. In the real world, they need to pay in billions of that. That's why individuals cannot be members of those derivatives exchange because they just usually can't. And so that's again democratizing, right? So founders especially, and we developed it further, found a way to optimize this and make sure that more people can participate in it. And that's how we protect the market. So our core is protecting the integrity of the overall market, right? Not guaranteeing a specific position, because if you enter into position, hey, you enter into position, but ensuring the integrity of the market, and that's really something we look for day in and day out. I mean, we discuss about that even more than about how we can increase our revenues.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to your point, anybody sort of entering the world of trading as it pertains to both TradFi and crypto, it has to be at your own risk, right? Like you should know and be educated as to exactly what you're getting into and exactly what you're looking for as far as an outcome, and then how the mechanisms behind it function. So if you're going on Bitmex as a user, or if you're going on CrossFi as a user and you're starting to play around with things that you're uncertain about or uneducated about, it's probably a bad idea. And so I think first and foremost, I think we as, platform owners, platform operators, we hope that the users kind of do their due diligence in regards to the products that they're using. I think first and foremost, I think another interesting point that you made is that you are educating through the user interface. So the way that we build products are meant to inform folks that are using them in regards to what exactly their transaction look like, what exactly is the risk that they're assuming, and kind of how that could potentially play out. So we do our best to make sure that within the interfaces, within kind of the products that we're presenting, we are informing, we are educating, we are kind of giving the context of the overall situation. And I think one of the things that I think about a lot is how can you empower users through confidence? I think confidence is one of the things that can make or break product adoption. I think confidence is one of those things that if a user is truly confident in using your product, they will become a power user. They will continue integrating it into their daily lives. If somebody lacks the confidence, whether it be through, potential pitfalls in the product or potential pitfalls in the user interface, they are going to be hesitant. They are not going to even assume the risk of using the product. And so I think building confidence is extremely important. And I think both Bitmex and CrossFi, through some of those back-end mechanisms, like you said, user protection, the insurance fund mechanisms, in, sort of the overall kind of back-end structure of the way that the products operate. I think we are trying to build the confidence. We are trying to instill that into our users in a way that makes them able to embrace our products, to gain value from them, and to continue using them confidently. So absolutely, 100% agree.
that resonates so much with me. But I have to admit, and that's part of being, from me at least, authentic too. That's something that we do, from my point of view, very well, especially on the product side. But if you then go to user experience, we still have a little bit of way to go, I think, for the following reason. So just to give you an example, we have launched this year our options market together with a partner, with PowerTrade. And we believe, and I still believe, it's a far superior product. Why? Because it gives our individual traders exactly what they need. What do I mean? If you look at options, they work inherently different than perpetual swaps. So people that trade perpetual swaps often are what is the right word? They are confused by the user experience with options. So I give you an example. If you trade perpetual swaps, which is basically a synthetic spot trade, you see your chart, you see the price, and you see an order book. That's it. So it's like, is it going up or down? What's the funding rate? Of course, there's more to it, but this is basically it. You get it intuitively. The moment you start trading options, if you look at the order book, you're like, where's the order book? Because there is no order book per se, because an option is like, you go into a Bitcoin option, for example, and then you have, first of all, a matrix that shows you a maturity and strike prices. And you're like, what is this? Where is my chart? Right? So the second thing is, how is it valued, right? So, or priced, and it's priced based on volatility, right? Perpetual swaps or even dated futures, they're linear products. They are mainly, the main driver is the direction of the underlying, full stop. Easy. Yes, there are others, but they are so minimal in terms of influence. And everything that deviates from that is an arbitrage opportunity. In options, you need to understand, okay, what's the volatility? Because options are actually a volatility product. So volatility goes up, option premiums go up, volatility goes down, options premiums go down. I don't want to educate people here now about financial or quantitative skills here. But that's the interesting piece, actually, because it means you can trade for a given underlying the volatility, the inherent volatility. But it's not intuitively understandable if you never have read something about options. So you need to design, and this is where we need to get. And second, which is even more important, we give access to a far greater universe of crypto options, so of underlyings, than others. Plus, we combine that with our partner with a so-called RFQ, request for quote service. That means even if there is no order book, you can request a quote, and then you can decide whether you want to trade based on this option premium or not. So you can build your own strategies. But if you come from perpetuals trading, you are quite overwhelmed. So if you are an options trader already, you know options from TradFi, or you have traded crypto options already, like with competitors, you're like, hey, that's great. You have better products, you have a greater product universe, you have lower lot sizes, lower tick sizes, which means you can actually pick and choose much better what you want to trade and how much money you want to get into that. Or you want to spend on your options premiums, and you can limit your exposure. So this is all great, but then you come to the UI UX, which we are just overhauling with a partner right now, because we thought, hey, it's intuitive. We all know how options work, but we needed to learn that, as you say, the confidence was, I don't get it. Are you sure that you do the right thing? So we need to redo this completely to get this confidence of the people again, because we need to speak with them where they are. Right? We can say, hey, this is all great and easy to understand. What's the matter, right? But this is arrogance. And we needed to go into that and say, no, let's skip that ego stuff. We want to build something for our customers, for our traders. So we need to adapt our user experience and user interface here so that it creates this confidence of the user. So that was a great point where I say on perps, we are there, but it's because it evolved over time. On the options side, where we say it's a great product, the quantitative fit, the product characteristics are far superior to anything you see, but still it's that user interface, user experience thing where you need to build in to make people confident using the service. So we're on it. We will deliver the second version, I think, in 2 or 3 weeks' time. Yeah. But this is really something that I just wanted to comment on that, because it was so like, I know exactly what you mean.
Absolutely. I think it's always really interesting, as a product operator, you are building to have a feature set, right? You are building
Yes.
because you know you need X, Y, Z, and it needs to work like this, and it needs to work efficiently, and it needs to be able to deliver upon the job that it was hired for. And that's how
Yes.
I think about products. You hire them for specific jobs, and they need to be able to deliver on those promises. But I think it's always really interesting how when you put something out into the market and you have confidence that it delivers on the promises
Mhm.
made, the feedback that you get is almost always unpredictable. You're always like, wow, I cannot believe that, I built this knowing what it needs to do, but as far as how people use it and as far as how people interact with it, it's always really interesting to get that feedback cycle.
Yes.
And I think to your point, as a great leader, you are always looking to balance between what you are trying to accomplish and sort of knowing how to build it the right way versus what is that feedback from your users and how do
Yes.
you incorporate that and how do you create that delicate balance between not just building based on user feedback but also having the expertise, having the domain expertise and the knowledge of how to deliver an amazing product, but also considering the fact that there are people that are not yourself that are going to be using this thing. And how do you
Yes.
make this the best possible experience? How do you deliver value in a way that delights those users? And I think about delighting users all the time, from the moment I wake up to the moment I
Yeah.
go to sleep. I think, how can I delight my users? And I think that is a really good segue into kind of my next question, which is
Mhm.
kind of pertaining to mass adoption. I think mass adoption can mean a multitude of things. Obviously, some products are built for 100% everybody in the consumer market. Some products are a little bit more niche down, but regardless of who you're building for, you always have kind of a total addressable market for your product, right? So for you, it might be kind of the more advanced traders, people that are looking for more advanced functionality. On my side, it might be the retail market, right? Anybody that uses credit cards in their daily lives, anybody that sort of does transactions in the financial world. So, in regards to mass adoption, kind of two-part question.
Mhm.
How do you ensure that the right users are learning about your products, and how do you make sure that the way that they learn about those products makes your product accessible, understandable, and how do they give those users confidence that they need to fully embrace your solution and then use it for their benefit? And then, of course, all of that being wrapped up into the constraint of the regulatory environment, because we as leaders in the crypto space know that regulations are always a headwind for us, especially when it comes to distribution. And
Mhm.
so love to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay. Great question. Because there is no easy answer to that, at least not from my point of view.
Sure.
So again, I like to delineate or I mean not compartmentalize but dissect the issue. If I speak about institutional or corporate customers, it's way easier in a way. Why? Because the universe is even smaller. So there might be a couple of hundred crypto native trading outlets out there, be it market makers, high frequency traders, asset managers, prop shops, what have you. It is more difficult to satisfy them, but it's easier to get what they really look for and to spark their interest. Why? Because it's a limited universe. You probably know a couple of people anyway, and then it's based on word of mouth, right? So even conferences are great there, like Token, right? Those are the conferences where we are and where most of our corporate customers are anyway. So that's basically great. So, and they are really open about what they want because they're, let's call it professionals. They want to, I mean, as you said it, and we think about it, our functionalities are, let's say, things we hire to do a certain job. They hire us to do a certain job. So they are happy telling us what they want. I mean, it might not be always 100% what they really want, but at least you have a starting point. And if you fail to meet their demands, they will let you know. And they actually like letting you know because then you can adapt to it. So it's more, this becomes an execution issue. For the corporate world, even in crypto, it's so professional already that it becomes an execution, let's say, challenge. And we're happy to take the challenge. And I believe that my team is really best in class there in terms of relationship management, customer support coverage. This is what we get back from them as well. On the more individual side, it's way more difficult, as you say. It's like, okay, how do I create attention? In the let's say good old days, like the previous two crypto summers, bull markets. I mean, Bitmex was the brand name basically. I mean, everyone knew the name, so that was easy. This bull run or this cycle, it's still like it has a lot of cloud and it has a lot of attraction and gravitas. But because more people come to it, and this is the positive side of mass adoption, if we use this term, is more people come to the space and they have no legacy issues, right? So they are open, but at the same time, you need to fight for them a lot more because they're like, okay, well, what do you actually do? I mean, there are other household names out there that are well known, and because we are a niche player, right? I mean, we started as a niche player. The niche just was everything that was there. That's why Bitmex was big. Now there is more, which is actually a good sign for the market, and I like it from that point of view. So not seeing it negatively, it's more positively. There is more adoption. There are more services in crypto. There's more proliferation, which is good, which means we need to be more vocal and tap into those pockets. How do we do it? I think we still live a lot from word of mouth, number one. So traders that are with us very loyal for years and years and years and still like to use our services. I mean, they're not running around like KOLs and shilling our services, not at all. But once in a while, you're like, hey, do you know someone? You should talk to ABC, and this is how it goes. So it's very personal, although we speak about democratizing and providing technical solutions and scaling up, but still it's a very personal business. Number two, of course, we work as many others too with more communities. I would call it. It's like a mixture. Like you have affiliates, you have KOLs. For us, again, the thing is getting the right ones because our audience is special, right? We're not hunting for people who want to buy Bitcoin for $100. I mean, hey, if they want to come, they can, but it's not our sweet spot. So we need to make sure that we work with people who can provide quality content to their audiences. And they need to be comfortable that we deliver and we provide them with something to speak about, right? Because they need to, it's the same. I mean, now it's B2B to C in a way.
Yeah.
And while we want to have the end individuals, or consumers or end customers, however you want to call it, but the man in the middle, who's actually our multiplicator or multiplier, he needs to be sure that what he tells his community is of good quality too. So it's a two-way street again, and there is a lot of back and forth before we actually onboard with partners there, before we do something. Sometimes we would love to just scale and do more, but we believe that this is the way to go. So we are a bit slower than some of our larger competitors in that space. But we believe it's time well spent in the end. So this is how we do it. And then it's about engaging. Then people come, they register, then they will get the news. We share via social media and directly, like research content. So once a week we get it's called Bitmex Alpha, where we say, hey, this would have been the trade of the week. This is how you do it. So even with a step-by-step approach, like, hey, if volatility went up, you might want to have an options trade like ABC, or hey, this week, Bitcoin versus Solana, so you can go long Bitcoin, short Solana would have been the thing. Actually, we tell you how to do that on the platform, not saying you should redo it. This is why we look back. We are not like, hey, next week you need to definitely do this.
Sure.
I mean, we speak about that, but not like giving financial advice, but we educate people ex post and look, this is how you do it. And this is where you need to set your stop limits, etc., etc. And then forward-looking, I mean, this is still something that goes out regularly. Arthur Hayes still provides his Crypto Trader Digest, which is basically macro research for the crypto space, which is then forward-looking, right? So those are the two main things. We do it once in a while, like if there's something big on the market, we distribute this too. But those are the two main aspects. When people already got interested, this is how we keep them with us and make sure there is a relationship. And for the bigger traders, it's even as personal as for the bigger corporates. I mean, it's less and less. People want to. I mean, it's why DEXs are successful too, because it satisfies a need, and you're not, what is it like? You don't get emails every day.
Right.
So this is another good thing about DEXs, right? I mean, why they work. They fulfill another need, and here is like somewhere in between. But this is how we do it. But it's a constant struggle. But this is then again, this is the nice thing. Even if you're on tech, it's about personal relationships. They just work differently, right? In the good old days of my grandparents, I mean, where did you meet? You met in the local, I don't know, singing club or choir or so, right? This is where things happen, and it happen in a specific way. People of this time don't like this anymore. You don't want to go into a choir just to do something, right? And exchange views. So nowadays you might be on Bitmex or on your platform, you're in the troll box and you're chatting, right? But you want to decide when to tune in and when to tune out. And that's the great thing about technology. And it enables us to have that, coming back to your point, choice, right? If
Yeah.
I want to be engaged, I tune in. I am 100% engaged. And if I say, hey, it's enough, guys, it's enough, I switch off social media, or I switch off my platforms.
Absolutely. And I think to your point, it's very interesting to think about the attention economy. I think as the space evolves, there are more players, so there is naturally more content, there are more users, there are more opinions, people are more vocal, there are now more platforms to distribute that information. And so, without a finely tuned strategy, without really trying to understand who your users are, what those users care about, where they consume that information, and the cadence with which they're interested in consuming that information. It's very easy to spin your wheels continuously, just do everything. You need to be on TikTok, you need to be on YouTube, you need to be on LinkedIn. If you really think about it though, not every channel works for every business. And I think especially not every type of content works for the types of users that you're looking to acquire. So I think to your point, Bitmax is focused on a very specific type of user that is interested in maximizing yield by leveraging certain financial products and learning to do that in the best way possible. And so for you guys, it's creating the types of content and leveraging the types of, we'll call them KOLs, but let's say ambassadors, leveraging the types of ambassadors that appeal to those types of users and really helping, I think going back to, previously in our conversation, to inform, to educate, and to give confidence to those users. So this is the trade you could have made. This is how it would have operated within our product. This is what you should think about next time you kind of go in and plan your trading strategy. Versus, I think in the retail market, it's even harder, right? You're looking at, just every single potential touch point that it takes to get somebody to have brand recognition, right? To have brand recall. It's insane. I mean, the number of touch points has just grown exponentially. You used to have 7 touch points and used to be a radio ad, a television ad, and you saw a banner somewhere on your drive to work. All of a sudden, yeah, wow, of course I know this brand. Now I think we're in the mid 20s, if I remember correctly, as far as touch points go for brand recall. So now you have to not only orchestrate this just completely holistic, touch point circle, right? You need to be on the social medias, you need to go through ambassadors, you need to figure out the right type of content, you need to figure out the timing, but you have to do all of that without being overwhelming. To your point, that's why, DEXs, I think, and sort of more decentralized platforms, why they are starting to become popular is because I think the market is oversaturated with content. It's oversaturated with touch points. Everybody's, hey, look at me, pick me, look how awesome I am. But I think there's this beautiful balance that you can strike as a platform with providing just the utmost sort of perfect, clean interface, great service, really helping people accomplish the goal that they hire you for, while simultaneously kind of creating content that is informative, that is educational, that builds confidence, and that is distributed in the right way, just enough to have presence, but not overwhelmingly enough to be annoying and to turn users off. And so, to your point, there is no easy answer. This is something that, I spend every single waking hour of my life thinking about, how to do this for the institutional market, how to do this for the retail market, how to balance all of these things. But I think, again, to your point, it's a constantly evolving mechanism, and we as leaders have a responsibility to keep our ear to the ground and to really figure out what's the next thing. How do we do this right? How do we adjust? How do we pivot? And so, even as even a platform like Bitmex, who is just a household name, right? Everybody knows Bitmex, constantly needs to continue innovating. And same goes for CrossFi, which is, a platform that is just coming up, that is just really starting to get traction. We are also doing that same pivoting, that same innovation, and trying to balance the scales. And I think that really kind of leads me into, one of my closing point probably. I think as a leader of a platform like Bitmex, it's a platform that's been around, that's serviced so many users, that has such notoriety in the industry, and notoriety in a good way, right? I want to highlight that because Bitmex is a very well-respected platform, and I think, you as a leader, what advice would you give to a company like CrossFi that is, not only sort of building a layer one blockchain, but is also building innovative financial instruments on top of that blockchain, that is building a consumer, a retail payment solution that is sort of, using the ecosystem to branch out to different sets of customers? What is some advice that you would give a, kind of early stage platform, and kind of what do you think is the most impactful path for a platform like CrossFi to be able to proliferate its products out into the world and to gain traction and gain success? Yeah. Yeah, highly appreciate that. I think it's really interesting, especially if you think about providing a service for a wide audience, potentially the entire unbanked population of the world, right? I think there's a lot of, there are a lot of challenges when it comes to distribution, being able to reach those folks, being able to educate those folks, being able to almost train them to, behave in a way that they, really might have never been accustomed to, right? Like if somebody doesn't have access to traditional banking infrastructure, now all of a sudden you're giving them decentralized finance, and you have to teach them how to use it. You have to teach them to be responsible for their own money. You need to teach them how to transact in the world, using these technologies. But I think, maybe to your point, it kind of makes our job a little bit easier, because if there's no baseline, right? If there's nothing to retrain, then maybe we actually do have, kind of along with our mission, which is mass adoption of our technology, and our population, which is, everybody that is a crypto native, as well as the unbanked population of the world. I think for us, it's a matter of just really understanding those users, figuring out what it is, that they are trying to solve for, and being able to communicate that in a very effective way, uh, without overwhelming them. Amazing. Well, Stefan, I know you're a busy man, and this has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I will absolutely remember this for years to come. Closing thoughts. Is there anything that you want to tell the audience? Is there anything that you want to put out there into the world, whether it's post-election price predictions, or product trend predictions, or and anything at all that's top of mind for you before we wrap this conversation? 100% agree. I always say that pretty much everybody I speak to, yourself, myself, we are fortunate, we are lucky to be able to have access to the infrastructure that allows us to participate in the global economy, to pay for goods and services, to be able to live our lives as global citizens without really much barrier to entry. And we forget, like you said, 2/3 of the world, the majority of the world population, is currently not as fortunate as we are. And I think as leaders, we have our daily challenges, we have our problems to solve for, we have, the users that we're building for. But I think the reason that we got into crypto and the reason that it's so important for me, and it sounds like equally important for you, is that we are revolutionizing the world in one way, shape, or form, and we are all somehow contributing to democratizing finance, to making the world a more inclusive place when it comes to people being able to participate in society. And I think that, on a micro level, we have our frustrations, we have our challenges, we have the things that, make us scratch our heads and, stress. But I think if you zoom out, we are all doing something extremely special. And I think that is the big motivator that we should all remember when we build, when we put our products out into the world, and when we continue to innovate and push boundaries. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time, Stefan. It's been an amazing conversation. I really appreciate it. And yeah, really excited to stay connected. And, maybe a year from now, we do another fireside chat and see kind of where we've landed, where the things that we've built, some of the changes that we've made, and where we are as a society as it comes to finance and crypto. And, I think overall,